Throwaway because my main has family on it and I'm not ready for that conversation. Also sorry in advance if this rambles. I haven't slept much and my head feels like a dryer with bricks in it. My wife 34 years and I 36, have been together for 11 years, married for 7. No kids. Until very recently, I would have described our relationship as fine? Not fireworks every day amazing, but stable, comfortable. The kind of marriage where you argue about dishes and whose turn it is to call the plumber, not about loyalty or trust. Which is why I feel extra stupid typing this now. The first signs of trouble were small enough that I ignored them, because that's what you do when you love someone and you don't want to be the paranoid husband stereotype. She started guarding her phone like it contained nuclear codes. Screen always face down. Bathroom trips with it. Password suddenly changed, because security. She got weirdly bitchy over nothing, snappy, condescending, acting like I was an inconvenience just for existing in the same room. She also started working late. A lot. Like, suddenly, ambitious, after years of 9 to 5 late. New clothes showed up. New underwear. A new perfume that definitely wasn't for me because she'd flinch when I got close, like my presence annoyed her. I asked once casually if everything was okay. She laughed, actually laughed, and said I was being dramatic and insecure. That should have been my first real wake-up call, but instead I apologized. I always apologized. At the time, I told myself marriages have phases. Stress happens. People get moody. I told myself I was lucky. I told myself not to dig. Turns out, not digging doesn't stop the ground from collapsing under you. After that first gut twinge, I did what I do best, rationalize everything to death. She stopped inviting me out with her friends, but hey, couples don't need to be joined at the hip, right? She'd roll her eyes if I asked what time she'd be home, like I was some controlling jerk instead of her husband asking a normal question. If I tried to hug her from behind while she was cooking, she'd shrug me off and say I was clingy. That word stuck with me. Clingy. As if wanting affection from your spouse is a character flaw. There were nights she came home buzzing, overly cheerful, almost manic, talking fast, dumping her purse on the counter, barely making eye contact. Other nights she'd come home cold and irritated, snapping at me for leaving a light on or breathing too loud. No middle ground anymore. Just extremes. The sex dried up fast. When it did happen, it felt rushed and distant, like she was checking a box. She'd stare at the ceiling. Sometimes she'd pull away and say she was tired halfway through. One time she actually sighed, like she was bored. That one messed me up more than I want to admit. I remember standing in the shower one morning, water pounding my shoulders, thinking, is this what the rest of my life is? Not cheating, just slow emotional rot. I almost preferred that explanation because it hurt less than the alternative. Then there was the night she accused me of cheating. Out of nowhere. We were eating takeout on the couch and she asked why I'd been so distant lately. I said I felt like she didn't want me around anymore. She scoffed and said, "Wow. Projection much." I asked what she meant. She shrugged and said, "People who accuse usually have something to hide." I laughed it off at the time, but later, lying in bed next to her while she scrolled on her phone with her back turned to me, that comment replayed on a loop. That was the moment I stopped ignoring the feeling in my chest. I didn't have proof yet. Just vibes. Bad ones. But once your brain flips that switch, everything starts lining up in ways you can't unsee. I didn't go looking for proof. I swear that's true. I wasn't snooping, wasn't playing detective, wasn't checking phone records like some cliché out of a bad movie. It just landed in my lap. She asked me to grab her laptop one morning because she was running late and needed me to print something. Totally normal request. I opened it, and her email was already up. Not inbox, drafts. You know how your brain knows something is wrong before you consciously process it? That happened. My stomach dropped before I even read anything. There was a draft addressed to a guy's name I didn't recognize. Casual. Familiar. Way too intimate for anything work-related. Stuff like, "Last night was insane. I can't stop thinking about you." And, "Next time, we need more time. I hate rushing." I didn't finish reading it. My hands started shaking so badly, I thought I might throw up on the keyboard. I closed the laptop like it had burned me. She came back into the room, hair half done, annoyed, asking if I'd printed the file yet. I said yes. I lied. My voice sounded weird to my own ears. Too calm, too flat. She grabbed the laptop, kissed my cheek in that fake, distracted way she'd been doing lately, and rushed out the door. The second the door closed, I sat down on the couch and just stared at the wall. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Old email. Wrong context. Some inside joke I didn't understand. Because the alternative meant my entire life had quietly blown up while I was worrying about laundry detergent brands. But that was the moment I knew. Deep down. The trust didn't crack, it shattered. And once that happens, you don't unhear the sound. I didn't confront her right away. Not because I'm noble or patient, but because I was terrified of being wrong and terrified of being right. For a couple days, I acted normal. Too normal. Asked how her day was. Made dinner. Laughed at her stupid work stories. Meanwhile my brain was spiraling non-stop, replaying that draft email like a cursed TikTok sound I couldn't turn off. I convinced myself maybe it was emotional cheating at worst. Maybe nothing physical had happened yet. Maybe she was just flirting and it went too far and she'd stop. I built entire imaginary redemption arcs for her without her doing a single redeeming thing. She, on the other hand, ramped up the attitude. She complained I was watching her too much. Asked why I seemed on edge. One night she straight up snapped, "God, can you not look at me like that?" I asked like what? She rolled her eyes and said, "Like I'm doing something wrong." That sentence nearly broke me. Then the gaslighting started in earnest. If I asked when she'd be home, I was controlling. If I didn't ask, she accused me of not caring. If I tried to talk about how disconnected we felt, she'd sigh dramatically and say she was too exhausted for this right now. I started questioning my own reality. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe every marriage goes through a phase where one person suddenly acts like a stranger who barely tolerates you. But then there were the texts. She left her phone on the counter while showering. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I also don't regret it. The screen lit up with a notification from an unsaved number. No name. Just a message preview. "Already miss you. Still smiling." That was it. That was the nail. No more denial. No more excuses. I stood there holding her phone, heart pounding, listening to the water running in the bathroom, realizing my wife was laughing with someone else while I was mentally dismantling our entire marriage in my head. And the worst part? I still put the phone back where it was and said nothing. I lasted exactly one more day pretending everything was fine. That night, she fell asleep fast. Too fast. Phone clutched to her chest like a security blanket. At some point around 2 a.m., she rolled over and the phone slid onto the mattress between us. I stared at it for a long time, heart hammering, doing that internal moral debate people love to judge until they're actually in it. I told myself, if you don't check, you'll always wonder. I told myself, she already broke the rules first. I told myself a lot of things. Her passcode was different, but not by much. Same numbers, new order. That alone felt like a slap in the face. She hadn't changed it to keep strangers out, she changed it to keep me out. The messages weren't hidden. No locked app. No burner phone. Just confidence. Carelessness. Or maybe she wanted to get caught. There were weeks of texts. Flirty at first, then unmistakable. Pet names. Inside jokes. Complaints about me, how I was emotionally heavy, how I didn't get her anymore, how she felt trapped. He responded with sympathy and validation, like a greatest hits album of everything she apparently wasn't getting at home. And yeah, it was physical. Very physical. Dates. Hotels. I can still feel you. Stuff I will never unread. I remember sitting there in the dark, my wife snoring softly next to me, while my entire body went numb. No dramatic crying. No yelling. Just this hollow, buzzing emptiness, like my soul had stepped out for a smoke and forgot to come back. Then, because the universe has a dark sense of humor, her phone buzzed again. A new message. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place. Tomorrow. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. Lay there until morning, staring at the ceiling, feeling like a guest in my own life. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't deciding if I'd confront her anymore. I was deciding how ugly it was about to get. I didn't plan some dramatic reveal. No printed screenshots. No calm speech rehearsed in the mirror. Life doesn't give you that kind of control. She was getting ready for work, humming, while I sat at the kitchen table nursing cold coffee like it might keep me upright. She asked if something was wrong because I was being weird again. That did it. I said her name. Just once. Flat. Quiet. She sighed like I'd asked her to take out the trash. What? I told her I knew. Not yelling. Not accusing. Just, I know you're seeing someone else. The pause after that was surreal. Half a second too long. Just long enough for her to calculate. Then she laughed. Actually laughed and said, "Are you serious right now?" She shook her head and said I was paranoid, that I needed help, that this was exactly why she'd been stressed lately, because of me and my insecurity. So I told her about the drafts folder. Her face changed. Not guilt. Not shame. Annoyance. Like I'd read her diary or used her toothbrush without asking. She snapped that I had no right to look at her email. Turned it around instantly. Said I violated her trust. When I mentioned the texts, she accused me of spying. When I mentioned the hotel messages, she went cold and said, "Okay, fine. It happened. Once. It hadn't. I knew that. She knew that I knew that. But she stuck to it anyway. She blamed the marriage. Blamed my emotional neediness. Said she'd felt alone for years. Said it just happened. Said she never meant to hurt me. Said it wasn't serious. Said she was going to end it anyway. Said everything except, "I'm sorry," in a way that meant anything. At one point she actually said, "You're blowing this way out of proportion." I remember thinking, this woman is watching me bleed and criticizing the mess. By the end of it, she was late for work, mad at me, and told me we'd talk later when I was calmer. Then she grabbed her keys and walked out, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the echo of her lies and a marriage that officially no longer existed the way I thought it did. And that's when the anger finally showed up. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't throw her stuff on the lawn. I didn't scream into the void like Reddit loves to imagine people do. I cleaned. I washed dishes that were already clean. I wiped counters that didn't need wiping. I reorganized a junk drawer like my life depended on it. I think some part of my brain believed that if I could just put things in the right place, this would all make sense again. The anger crept in sideways. Quiet. Mean. I replayed every argument we'd had in the last year and suddenly heard all the subtext I'd ignored. Every time she called me dramatic. Every time she told me I was too much. Every time she made me feel like I was lucky she tolerated me. I realized she'd been rewriting our history while it was still happening. Around noon, she texted me like nothing had happened. "Can we not do this today? I have a big meeting." That's it. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just an inconvenience she needed rescheduled. I didn't respond. For the first time in years, I didn't rush to manage her feelings. Instead, I did something impulsive. I called in sick to work. Then I drove. No destination. Just drove until my hands stopped shaking. At a red light, I suddenly started crying so hard I had to pull over. Full-on ugly sobbing, like my body had finally gotten the memo. I wasn't just angry she cheated. I was angry that she made it seem so easy. Angry that she could lie to my face without flinching. Angry that while I was questioning my sanity, she was scheduling hotel rooms. By the time I got home, there was a weird calm underneath the rage. A dangerous one. The kind that makes you realize something fundamental has shifted. I wasn't fighting to save the marriage anymore. I was starting to see her clearly, and I didn't like what I saw. She came home late again. Of course she did. Walked in like she'd just finished a normal Tuesday, kicked off her shoes, asked if there was any food. Didn't even look at me at first. I asked if she'd seen him. That got her attention. She froze for half a second, then scoffed. "Wow. You're really doing this." She said it like I was embarrassing her. Like I was the problem she had to manage. I told her I knew about tomorrow. About the same place. About the fact that she'd lied straight to my face that morning and then gone right back to planning it. Her jaw tightened. She crossed her arms. Defensive posture, like we were debating chores instead of the collapse of our marriage. She said I was twisting things. Said the texts were out of context. Said they were just talking again. When I reminded her of the hotel messages, she snapped, "Why are you so obsessed with details?" That one hit hard. She accused me of interrogating her. Of trying to control the narrative. Said I was making her feel unsafe. Unsafe. Meanwhile, I was sleeping next to someone who'd been lying to me for weeks, maybe months, and I was supposed to worry about her comfort. Then came the classic hits, rapid fire. I didn't plan for this to happen. You weren't there for me, emotionally. I felt invisible. I was going to tell you. It doesn't mean I don't love you. Every sentence contradicted the last. I started pointing that out, calmly, and she lost it. Raised her voice. Said I was gaslighting her. Said I always had to be right. Said this is why things with him felt easy. That's when I realized something chilling. She wasn't sorry. She was annoyed she'd been caught before she was ready to leave on her own terms. When I asked if she'd end it immediately, no contact, no excuses, she hesitated. Just a beat. But it was enough. She said, I need time. Time. To choose. Between me and the guy she'd been sneaking around with while calling me clingy. That was the moment a quiet voice in my head said, this marriage is already over. You're just the last one to know. The anger burned hot, but it didn't last. It gave way to this heavy, dragging sadness that felt worse somehow, like emotional gravity. I stopped cleaning. Stopped pacing. Just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the dent her body left in the mattress when she wasn't there. She slept on the couch that night. Not because I asked. Because she said she needed space, and slammed a pillow down like she was the injured party. I lay there alone, listening to the muffled TV through the wall, wondering how someone could blow up your life and still fall asleep before you. Around 3 a.m., it hit me all at once. I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing the future I'd been quietly building in my head. The trips we talked about taking, someday. The kid names we half-joked about. The version of her I thought I married, the one who would never do this. I cried into my pillow like a teenager. Silent, shaking, chest aching. Not dramatic, just devastated. There's a particular grief that comes from realizing the person you trusted most was never who you thought they were. It makes you question your own judgment in a way that feels deeply personal and humiliating. The next morning, she acted lighter. Almost relieved. Like the truth being out meant she didn't have to perform anymore. She asked if I'd thought about what I wanted to do. As if this were a career crossroads, not betrayal. I told her I felt like my entire sense of reality had been ripped out from under me. She nodded, distracted, scrolling on her phone. Then said, I get that, but we can't live in the past. That was when I realized my sadness wasn't shared. I was mourning something alone. And something else settled in too, quiet but firm. I deserved better than this version of love. People talk about acceptance like it's some calm, enlightened state where everything clicks into place. That's a lie. Acceptance, for me, showed up as exhaustion. I was tired of arguing with someone who rewrote reality mid-sentence. Tired of waiting for remorse that wasn't coming. Tired of feeling like I had to convince my own wife that I was worth choosing. She kept oscillating between cold and weirdly friendly. One minute she'd say maybe we could work on things if I stopped being so intense. The next, she'd snap that she didn't know if she even wanted this marriage anymore. Every conversation felt like standing in shifting sand. At one point, she casually mentioned that the other guy understood her in ways I didn't. No apology attached. Just a statement. Like she was reviewing two products and weighing pros and cons. That was when something finally shut off inside me. I stopped asking questions. Stopped reacting. Stopped trying to get her to see how badly she'd hurt me. Not out of strategy, out of clarity. You can't extract empathy from someone who doesn't want to give it. I started sleeping better, weirdly. The anxiety that came from not knowing was worse than the pain of knowing. Once the truth was fully out in the open, there was nothing left to uncover. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. She noticed the change and didn't like it. Asked why I was being so distant now. Said it felt like I was already gone. I almost laughed at that. Almost. Because yeah, in some very real way I was. People keep asking, so what was the final straw? Like there's always one cinematic moment where you stand up, point dramatically, and declare you're done. That's not how it happened. The decision showed up quietly, on a random Wednesday night, while she was out, thinking, again. I was sitting alone eating leftovers straight from the container, scrolling mindlessly, when I realized something unsettling. My chest felt calm. Not happy. Not relieved. Just done. Like my body had already moved on and my brain was catching up late. I imagined staying. Couples counseling. Months of rebuilding trust with someone who'd already shown me how easily she could lie. Imagined flinching every time her phone buzzed. Imagined becoming someone I didn't like, suspicious, resentful, smaller. Then I imagined leaving. Not the pain-free version, because that doesn't exist, but the honest one. Quiet apartment. Lonely evenings. Relearning who I was without constantly monitoring someone else's moods. The grief was still there, but there was also space to breathe. That's when I knew. When she came home, I told her I wanted to separate. No yelling. No accusations. Just facts. She blinked like she hadn't expected that outcome. Asked if I was serious. Asked if I was really throwing everything away over this. That sentence almost made me laugh. She tried bargaining. Said she'd end it now. Said we could start fresh. Said she didn't think I'd actually leave. And there it was, the truth hiding in plain sight. She thought I'd stay no matter what. I told her I deserved a partner who chose me without hesitation, without needing time, without comparing me to someone else. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic again. That was the last lie I needed to hear. I packed a bag that night. Not everything. Just enough. And when I closed the door behind me, I felt something unexpected under the sadness. Relief. Leaving didn't magically fix anything. It just changed the kind of pain. The first night in my new place, tiny, overpriced, smells faintly like someone else's cooking oil. I sat on the floor because I hadn't bought furniture yet and laughed out loud at how stupidly symbolic that felt. 36 years old, successful on paper, eating takeout on the ground like a college kid who made bad choices. She texted me non-stop the first 2 days. Not apologies. Logistics. Questions about bills. Where I'd put the warranty paperwork. Whether I was really telling people we were separating, or just taking space. At one point she asked if I could come over and help her reset the Wi-Fi. That one hurt in a weird way. Then the tone shifted. She got angry. Said I was abandoning her. Said I was punishing her instead of working through it like an adult. Said she never thought I'd be this cold. The irony almost knocked the wind out of me. Mutual friends started reaching out, confused. She'd told them a very edited version of events. That we'd grown apart. That I'd checked out emotionally. I didn't correct them right away. I was too tired to defend my own reality. Late one night, I checked my phone out of habit and saw a photo she'd posted. New haircut. Smiling. Caption about choosing herself. I won't lie, that stung. But underneath it was something else. Clarity. I finally understood that her version of healing didn't include accountability. It never had. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel tempted to go back and explain myself. I didn't need her to understand anymore. I just needed to keep moving forward. The quiet stretched on longer than I expected. Not the dramatic, cinematic silence, just the day-to-day kind. Making coffee for one. Coming home to no commentary. Falling asleep without someone sighing next to me like my existence was a mild inconvenience. At first, everything reminded me of her. Songs. Grocery aisles. Stupid inside jokes that had nowhere to land anymore. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to tell her something mundane, you'll never guess what happened at work, and then remember there was no us to send it to. That hurt. A lot. But then something weird happened. I started noticing how much energy I suddenly had. Mental space. I wasn't bracing myself for her moods. I wasn't rehearsing conversations in my head, trying to anticipate what version of her I'd get that day. I didn't feel like I was auditioning for my own marriage anymore. Friends started seeing it too. One of them said, "You seem lighter." That almost made me cry on the spot. I unpacked slowly. Bought a couch I liked without asking anyone's opinion. Cooked meals she used to complain about. Rediscovered hobbies I'd quietly abandoned because they annoyed her or took up too much time. There were still bad days. Days where anger flared back up out of nowhere. Days where I replayed conversations and thought of better things I should have said. But the sadness wasn't swallowing me whole anymore. It came in waves, and I learned how to ride them without panicking. One night, it hit me. I wasn't rebuilding my life. I was reclaiming it. And that realization, slow, unglamorous, deeply personal, felt like the first real step toward healing. We had one last real conversation. Not about paperwork or logistics or who was paying what, an actual talk. She asked to meet for coffee. Neutral territory. Public. Safe. I almost said no, but a part of me wanted closure, even if I knew better than to expect it from her. She showed up late. Of course. Sat down like we were old co-workers catching up. Told me I looked good, which somehow felt insulting. Like she was evaluating the aftermath of a storm she caused. She said she'd been doing a lot of thinking. That she missed me. That she didn't realize how serious I was until I actually left. That the other guy wasn't what she thought. I noticed she didn't say she regretted cheating, just that the consequences surprised her. She asked if there was any chance we could try again. For a split second, I felt it, that pull toward the familiar. The version of her I loved. The fantasy of undoing everything and pretending it was just a bad chapter. Then I remembered the drafts folder. The laughter when I confronted her. The way she needed time to choose. I told her no. Not angrily. Not triumphantly. Just honestly. I said I couldn't unsee who she was when she thought I wouldn't leave. I said love without respect rots from the inside. I said I forgave her, not for her, but because I didn't want to carry this forever. She didn't take it well. She said I'd changed. Said therapy had made me selfish. Said I was throwing away real history for some imaginary moral high ground. When I stood up to leave, she muttered, "Good luck finding someone who puts up with you. That one used to destroy me." This time, it didn't land. I walked out, heart pounding, hands shaking, but certain. For the first time since this all began, I didn't feel like I was losing something. I felt like I was choosing myself. It's been a while since everything blew up. Long enough that the days don't feel sharp anymore. Long enough that I can think about her without my chest tightening like a fist. Here's the thing no one tells you when you're in it. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it messes with your sense of self. You start asking the wrong questions. Why wasn't I enough? What did I miss? How could I have stopped this? Those questions will eat you alive if you let them. What I've learned, slowly, painfully, is that people who cheat don't do it because you failed. They do it because they chose the easiest escape instead of the hardest conversation. Because they wanted validation without accountability. Because lying felt more convenient than being honest. I also learned that someone can swear they love you and still treat you terribly. Love without respect isn't love, it's entitlement. If you're reading this because you just found the texts, or the emails, or the photos, and your hands are shaking like mine were, trust your instincts. Don't let anyone convince you that you're crazy for reacting to betrayal. Don't accept blame for someone else's choices. And don't stay just because the version of them you miss never really existed the way you thought it did. Walking away was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was also the best. I don't know exactly what my future looks like yet. But I know this, it won't be built on lies, or gaslighting, or begging someone to choose me. And that's enough for now.